So I've got to respond to some Ron Paul critics here. But before I do, let's just be clear that when we're dealing with politics, there is never going to be a perfect candidate or a perfect system to put in place so that everybody's life is perfect. All we can do is try to find a way that minimizes the evils and the corruption and the bureaucracy and the inefficiency. And when I look up on stage at the Republican debates and when I look on stage at the Democratic debates, I'm frightened by the choices that we have. And when I see Ron Paul, it's just a breath of fresh air. And no, I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying that we should bow down to him and worship him. In fact, that's the exact opposite of the reason I would vote for him, because he does not want power as president. He wants to return to respecting the Constitution and to limited government, limited power of this centralized bureaucracy, this centralized governmental power, which is so powerful today that they own our incomes, they own our property, they can pretty much do whatever they want to us. And that is not supposed to be that way. That's not how America was founded. That's not what we're supposed to be. That's not what we're supposed to stand for. So a few things here. First of all, on abortion, Ron Paul is personally against it, as most people are. Nobody wants to have to see a woman, um, you know, kill her child. Um, but I think it's the woman's personal choice at the same time. It's just a sad thing to see happen. But Ron Paul isn't gonna. He's not for a constitutional amendment to ban gay marriage. He says it's a state's issue, and the state should decide. The local government should decide if a woman is allowed to have an abortion or not. And most states are going to say that the woman is allowed. Maybe there'll be a few, especially conservative states, that will deny that right, but then move. It's up to the people of the state to vote on whether or not abortion should be legal or not. Ron Paul isn't going to decree that it is or it isn't. Um, Now, about the economy, and there's a lot of people that are nervous about this idea of a free marketplace because it seems to open up the door for unregulated pollution, abuse of the consumer, and all of this. But let's look at the situation right now. We have a centralized governmental system surrounded by thousands and thousands of lobbyists from corporations and special interests. And because there is a centralized system that has such a huge say over our entire country's economic um, system, those corporations can buy a few politicians and have laws passed which benefit them, which benefit huge corporations over small business owners. Ron Paul would level the playing field. He would certainly open up the market, but he would open it up in such a way that these special interest groups, these huge corporations, aren't going to be able to go to Washington and say, well, I think the laws should be this way, so here's my draft of the law, and I'll give you a free trip to the Bahamas and a couple $100,000, Mr. Congressman, if you'll pass this law. And, typically that's how it works. Big pharmaceutical companies, big energy companies under the Bush administration have written their own laws, given them to politicians to introduce into Congress, and they become law. That's not how it would happen under Ron Paul's system. Under Ron Paul's system, every business, whether you're a huge billion-dollar corporation or a small business, you're gonna get the same rights, and it's gonna be just as easy for a small business to get licensed and able to do business as it is now for the big corporations. Um, and as far as pollution goes, when we start to respect private property more, it's a lot harder to pollute the environment, because when we have public commons that nobody really lives on, nobody feels responsible for taking care of, it's a lot easier for them to become polluted. It's a lot easier for corporations to pour out their trash into this public space without anybody noticing or without anybody getting up in arms about it. But if more land is privately owned, of course someone's going to be pissed off if the water source, the river running through their land, is polluted or the air is smoggy. Someone owns that land, and they're going to be pissed off about it, and they will go to court and bring that corporation and hold that corporation accountable. So all of these fears are just unfounded, and it's a prejudice that it's sort of based on a straw man that we've never had the kind of system that Ron Paul wants to put in place, or at least we haven't had anything like it for 100 years. But this country was based on freedom and liberty, and the idea that people should be able to do as they please as long as they don't harm others, and that the government isn't supposed to be our parent, isn't supposed to be somehow responsible for taking care of us. Because when you allow the government to do that, what happens? People become more irresponsible, less able to take care of themselves, stupider, helpless. And that's the kind of society I think we are fostering now. So, look, everybody, you're all perfectly welcome to disagree with me and to disagree with Ron Paul's policies, but let's think about this, reason it out, and rationalize it, and not just react to something and when we don't even know what we're really saying, because a lot of the negative things I'm hearing about Ron Paul's policies, you haven't obviously listened to the man speak. So let's talk about this stuff. Let's talk about it.